Today. Good morning, Gordon.
Yeah, good morning, everybody.
It's great to have you here. Now, I think most people know that CEDAR is probably generally regarded as the world leader in noise suppression tools, real-time noise suppression tools, really for the last few decades. And, you know, ever since CEDAR bought out that the DNS2 hardware, the real-time noise suppression hardware tool, I think, what was that, about 3, 4, 5 years ago?
5 years ago in April.
Wow, is it that long? Well, ever since that came out, you know, we've had a rapidly growing mutual customer base. That tool has become very popular with production sound mixers, and oftentimes you'll find a DNS2 alongside a sound device's recorder in the bag or on a cart, and provides a greater tool for helping to bring out the clarity of dialogue in noisy environments. So we've sort of had a growing mutual customer base, really, and it wasn't really that long until we started getting flooded with requests from our users saying, oh, it'd be great if you could integrate CEDAR with your actual recorder. And we're going, that seems like a bit of a pipe dream to us. But yeah, I can see why you want that. And, you know, it's through some really hard work and a real tight collaboration with you guys that we've actually been able to pull that off and integrate the wonderful CEDAR noise suppression algorithm into our recorders. And it's been a long journey, but I think really worthwhile. Just thanks for being a part of this collaboration, Gordon.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure. I mean, like most companies, we want to try and cater for everybody's needs. And clearly there was a requirement expressed to us by our customers, who are also your customers, for a collaboration here. And the flexibility either to have the noise reduction in the recorder mixer or as a separate unit, which could then be carried around and used with different equipment and in different setups. And the two requirements were not mutually exclusive. So here we are.
Mm-hmm. Well, the wonderful thing about this integration of CEDAR into the sound device recorder, it does mean that the bag can be much lighter. The fact that there's no external cables connecting an external bit of hardware into the HCs, that is one of the big advantages there. Now, the CEDAR comes in a number of different versions, right? That there's a 2-channel. We call it actually instances, and we use the word instances
yeah,
to avoid confusion between channels and instances, because we use channels to describe like our audio paths in. So we have a 2-instance, a 4-instance, and an 8-instance version of the CEDAR sdnx algorithm, which is actually an optimized version of your algorithm for the 8 series. Do you want to just talk about what the differences are between the sdnx and the DNS2 algorithm?
Yes, certainly. In every case, you have to design a product, not just for what it's going to do, but the way in which it's going to be used. So, for example, you could create an algorithm to do the cleaning up of noise in a location sound type of situation, which did an incredibly good job, but had 100 parameters, ran on a computer, and you'd have to load the audio on and off and spend forever trying to find the sweet spot of this huge number of parameters. And whilst you might get a fantastic result at the end of it, the moment would have passed. If you're going live to air, obviously that's impossible. If you're working in a high pressure environment, for different reasons, also impossible. So the job of the software designer is to make something that combines the required functionality and takes into account the way that it's going to be used. So what we did for sdnx was to start with the noise suppression technology, that we know and love, because that's what the users were asking for. I mean, it wasn't a given. We could have gone in a different direction, but certainly people were very keen to have access to that. And then look at how it would be used on the sound devices, recorder mixers. And what we realized was that a range of parameters, a large number of parameters, would actually get between the user and doing the job very quickly in a high pressure environment. And so what we had to do was find a version of the DNS algorithm that was perhaps a little bit less flexible than the hardware implementations, but had a very wide sweet spot for simple control.
Mm-hmm.
And the design that we came up with dispenses with the bias control and dispenses with the ability to freeze the noise learning algorithm, and has therefore just a single attenuation control.
Makes it super quick to use.
Super quick, very easy. And we know there are times when people can't take their eyes off what's happening in front of them to look down at their bag and see what's going on and find the right controls and adjust multiple parameters, again, to find the sweet spot. And so just a single attenuation control seemed to us to be the ideal solution. The algorithm is very intelligent. It learns the noise on a moment-by-moment basis, and you as the user just decide how much you want to remove at any given moment. And I mean, you can ride it if you want to, but that really should be unnecessary.
I must say the algorithm is the artifacts are so minimal. I mean, it's an incredible tool that it, in almost like with almost zero latency, it's able to achieve this. It's sort of like mind-boggling. I mean, the actual latency is only 13 samples, and to achieve this in achieve that in a portable product like this is incredible. You know, there are obviously a whole bunch of noise suppression tools out there, but often they have really high latency, and that's not suitable for live work or this type of application. So how did you get the latency so low? I mean,
well, it's the nature of the algorithm. A lot of denoising products are based on technology that was conceptualized in the 80s and developed in the 90s. And this uses various types of filters that, by their very nature, need to have a significant latency. They need to load blocks of data and process them and then move the block out. That's just completely unsuitable for any kind of real-time application. I mean, particularly if you're going live to air, you start losing lip sync at a few milliseconds. And so you have products that have 100, 200, 300, 400 millisecond latencies. They cannot be used. So when we designed the original DNS algorithm 20 years ago now, the original version, the specification was that the latency should be less than 10 samples, which we achieved, and we've achieved ever since. I mean, the DNS2, the DNS8D have a lower than 10 sample latency.
mm-hmm.
The only reason why there's 13 in the Sound Devices 8 series is because obviously the software and the device have to talk to each other, and there's a couple of samples additional in each direction there.
Still more than usable.
More than usual, but at 48K, which is what I suspect most of your users will be working at, that comes out, I think, at 0.27 milliseconds.
Mm-hmm.
So you could put 10 or 20 or perhaps even 30 of these in series. Yeah, actually more, thinking about it, and you still wouldn't have a visible loss of lip sync.
That's an interesting point you just brought up there, Gordon, putting these noise suppression tools in series. Is that something that is common to achieve, like extra levels of noise suppression, or is it generally recommended you just have the one?
No, it's just an example. It's just a way of expressing how low that latency is.
Right. Okay.
The fact
now,
that, I mean, I think that the shortest ever was the DNS 2000, which I think was 4 samples.
Right.
And we you literally could be 50 or 100 of these in series and not lose lip sync.
It's just amazing, mind-boggling to me that, you know, such a complex algorithm, what it's having to deal with to in real time to pull out background noise from dialogue without affecting the dialogue, and doing all that in essentially a few samples. That's where the most incredible aspect of
Yeah.
it is. Now, the other thing that you mentioned, you just briefly mentioned, yeah, most of our customers will be working at 48K,
Yeah.
but the SDNX algorithm does work at 96K in the 8 series as well.
Yes.
So what sort of applications do you see 96K being used at?
Probably more the recording applications than any kind of live live mixing application. We do see your recorders sometimes in sort of environments where we wouldn't expect them necessarily, sort of music
Yeah.
recording environments and so forth. And as soon as you're there, 96K for the initial recording becomes a kind of a de facto standard. So it was important to us that we should achieve 96K on your devices so that we could satisfy everybody's needs.
Now, one of the key functions of the DNS2 hardware was that you could basically provide both a processed version of a signal as well as a raw version, which is absolutely an essential tool, because sometimes you need to be able to provide a process feed for on-set applications, like for cleaning up dialogue, maybe for IFB or perhaps even for dailies. But post-production would want obviously a raw, clean version for their use.
Yeah.
So the option to be able to supply both was a key part of the DNS2. And it just so happens that our 8 series is capable of also handling that, even with 8 instances of CEDAR running. So if you look at, for instance, our 888 or the Scorpio, where we have many channels, you can bring in perhaps 8 signal sources, 8 mic sources, have 8 of those processed on as ISOs with the CEDAR, and then have the same channel routed, the same input, 8 inputs routed to another 8 channels, which are left clean, and then deliver those 16 ISOs, 8 of them processed, 8 of them clean, all in the one recorded file. And that provides a lot of flexibility for workflow.
It's absolutely vital. When we designed the DNS2, it was a sort of a red line in the sand about the specification, because people work in very different ways, and necessarily so. It's all very well if you've got a large post studio sort of behind you in the production chain, then you can supply everything clean. And the way that people then use DNSs on set in that way is really confidence checking, sometimes dailies as well, just to make sure that any given take will be cleaned up successfully in post without having to resort to ADR. But there are so many productions where you just don't have that luxury, or maybe the post budget is very small, and if you can give usable clean audio, that helps.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, sometimes there is almost no post at all, or no audio post, and then you've got to give clean audio if you can. And that's where this concept of the sweet spot becomes so important, because it's easy to damage audio with noise reduction. Everybody knows that. It's a constant running theme for 30 years, since forums were invented and so on. And it's absolutely true. You can do a lot of damage with noise reduction. So if you are going to apply any noise reduction at the point of capture, then you have to be confident that you can get rid of a sensible amount of noise, but with minimal or no degradation to the wanted audio.
Right.
And I mean, the most obvious example of that, if I could just finish, of course, is when you're going live to air. It's
Absolutely.
no good having all of those twittery and underwater type artifacts going through, whether it's your live to air news program or your sports event or something of that sort, and saying, well, hey, it's clean, but the sound is blah, 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 like unusable. So when we designed the DNS2, and as you rightly say, when used on an 8 series, the ability to record the locally cleaned and the original audio simultaneously then creates the greatest amount of flexibility further down the path.
There are a couple of other things that we do with the CEDAR in the 8 series. There is actually a way to very quickly put a bypass on. We have like our toggle switches underneath the LCD on the 8 series, and you can program one of those toggles to enable, disable CEDAR instantly, so you can check the effects of it with just very quickly without having to dive into a menu, which I think is an important thing. And also, we didn't mention this, but it can be applied to buses as well, not just ISO channels. So you can leave all, if you want, leave all your ISOs clean, leave your main left-right delivery mix clean as well. And when I say clean, unprocessed is what I mean by that.
Yes.
And then you have, on the Scorpio, for instance, you have 10 other buses which you could apply the CEDAR to. So you could deliver a processed mix and an unprocessed mix. So really there's the full flexibility there to choose how you want to work in your workflow without upsetting anyone in post, because I totally understand why post production could be sensitive about this. And if you say, look, I've got a clean version and I've got also a processed version, don't worry. That's a key thing. You know, we want to keep these people on our side.
Indeed. And also we want to make it possible for people to work the way they want to work. Yeah. Which is why there is, you know, absolutely a place for sdnx. So it's a great place. And there's still a place for a 2-channel unit like a DNS2. And of course there's place for the rack mount dialogue noise suppressors as well, for, you know, broadcast, for studio applications and so on, multiple podium mics and so forth. So they all fit together. There's a bit of overlap here and a bit of overlap there, but ultimately what we're doing here is we're extending the ways in which people can access, you know, what I hope everybody will agree will be their high quality or even highest quality noise suppression whilst they're doing their job.
Absolutely. Well, Gordon, it's been a very long, arduous collaboration with you guys. We've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been hard work, but we got there and we've delivered. And I never thought that this would be possible, but thank you so much for being involved and collaborating with us. It's been fantastic.
Oh, yeah, it's been great. Even though for those of you who are listening who understand this, Paul is an Arsenal supporter. So
do you have to bring that up right now? We're not having a great season.
There was a moment there where I, as a Tottenham supporter, it called the whole thing into question, but we got there in the end.
I guess that would be like the equivalent of the Packers versus I don't know, for the Vikings or the Bears probably. For it's 100-year what do they call it?
Conflict.
Yeah. Conflict.
Some people call it a rivalry, but really,
someone else is calling out Chelsea there. But anyway, yeah, it's been really worthwhile, and it's been also nice to be able to talk to a bunch of Brits regularly during this collaboration. So yeah, it makes me feel I'm at home.
Thank you.
And should we, Joe? Maybe we should open this up to some questions.
Yeah. William Soros was just asking essentially about the samples, so he's thinking 0.3 milliseconds would be the correction factor, essentially, while running the SDNX.
Yeah, roughly about 48K, about
48K, yep.
About that. Yeah, I mean at 96K, that's going to halve to about whatever. But yeah, if you want to apply correction, I don't think it's necessary in terms of sync because it's so low. But if you just want to pull everything out to avoid any form of phasing issues.
Yeah, he says he was putting everything in mono. So
yeah.
There we go.
You wouldn't get any kind of flanging effect to a delay that short. I mean, by all means correct, but if you don't have the facility to do so with a latency of 13 samples, it's not going to matter.
Got it, yeah. Oh, so he's using...
What happens, we do.
He's saying, yeah, when you provide boom and process boom and they mix to mono by mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Well, you see, in that situation, the air gap, the different air gap between the speaker or the source and the two microphones is considerably longer than a 13 sample latency.
Okay. A few of these are technical questions. A lot of these are covered in our FAQ. The difference essentially between the DNS and noise assist, just listen to them both. They are both available on your 8 series in demo modes. Set up a little thing, and they are just slightly different algorithms
Yeah, I mean,
in there.
they are totally different algorithms. Obviously, they're designed to do the same job, but it's a little bit analogous, really, to what we did with auto mixing, where we have in the 8 series both our own mix assist algorithm, and then we also support Dan Dugan's auto mixer, which is again the world leader in auto mixing, just like CEDAR is in noise suppression. So we're providing you really with a choice and to select which one you want to use depending on the environment, because every situation is different. And yeah, just try them out. From a technical point of view, we've already covered the main differences. The CEDAR is remarkably low latency. Not that the noise assist is bad latency. Noise assist is about a millisecond, whereas the CEDAR is around 13 samples. And then the other thing about the CEDAR is it will go up to 96K sample rate, whereas the noise assist is limited to 48K.
Okay, all right. I think that's it. Let me see. What are the limitations of the demo? The demo mode is 2 channels, I believe.
And what will happen is every 10 seconds or so, you'll get a beep on all the outputs. So unless your take is really short, you're going to have trouble using that in earnest. Yeah, you can, but it's long enough where you can hear the effects of yeah, ha ha ha, beep beep. Correct.
Yeah. Let's get it to go there. Okay. All right. That kind of looks like it's taken care of our questions. As a reminder, you can find it on the Sound Devices website under the plugin store. It's also under each 8 series page. You can check out the FAQ there if you have any further questions. And yeah, Gordon, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with everybody.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't see you all, but I know you're there.
Oh, yeah.
So, thank you
This
for
is the world we live in.
That's just you,
Thanks,
Joe. There's
Gordon.
another 54. But no, thank you very much for inviting me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, our pleasure. Great to see you.
Right.
Okay.
And I can take Gordon off there. Everyone should be just Paul. Okay. Folder structure, file structure.
Yeah. Okay, yes. So the other part of version 7.40 firmware is we've we've polished some of the record folder structure, added a few more features there, which was always our plan and continues to be our plan, and tidied up some bugs related to daily folders. And so there's 7.40 is a lot to do with file, folder, and take management. So just want to take you through a few of those things. So what I'm going to do here is actually flip my camera and focus on the 8 series in front of me. So let's check that will actually work this time. Okay. Oh yeah, the zoom works. Bravo.
All
Doesn't
right.
always work. You got that, Joe?
Yeah, looks good.
All right, so everyone can see my 8 series screen here. So the first thing, let's go into our take list, which everyone is familiar with. And here's our take list. Now, you'll notice that there have been a few little changes here on the toggle switches. We wanted to get access to the record folder much more directly, rather than having to, previously you had to select the next take, go into the next take menu and then select it there. And I think that was just one step too many. So now you can literally just go into your take list and hit this toggle here where it says record folder, and then you're in straight away. You can actually program a shortcut on one of these toggles to take you directly to the record folder from the main screen as well, should you want to. So so that's one. I mean, it might seem like a small thing, and it is a small thing, but you know, every step that you can take out of the workflow, the better. So let's go into here. And oh, there is another other way, by the way, but I'll show you that soon. Let's go into a record folder. Now, we have tried to make it much easier to navigate and make it far more intuitive where you are in the record folder structure. Now, a record folder, as you probably all know, I want to make it clear that this is a record folder ensures that you have the same folder structure and all your record folder manipulations happen across all media at once. Okay, it's a bit like a take. When you edit a take, you edit the files that make up that take on all three media in one go, so that all three media remain in sync. It's the same with record folders. So if I have a record folder structure here and I've created all these folders, they are going to appear on all the drives. Okay. Now, one obvious thing that we've done here is actually put at the top of the screen which level you are currently in, which level of the folder structure. And you can see here, I've got all of these folders, which I've created at the root level, and I can navigate into them, any of them. Let's go to this one here, for instance, and I can see that there's folders within there, and I can navigate further and see folders within there. And we've also made it a bit more intuitive when you back out of a lower folder. So you can either press this dash ... or press the menu button on the side here to back out. And one of the annoying things in the previous release is that if you backed out of a folder, it wouldn't display the full range of folders in the list. And it was hard. You had to scroll to find out where you are. Now it backs out to where you came from. So as you can see here, so it's far more intuitive and more like a Mac or PC navigation system in that respect. But notice how when I navigate into like a folder, like for instance, season 2 here, it shows me the path at the top as well. So I can see which folder I'm in. It's much more intuitive. If I go into another folder here, it shows me the full path here. All right. Now you may have noticed that one of these folders is colored in orange. Now that basically tells you how to navigate the current folder path. So that's telling me that the record folder is currently somewhere in season 2. All right. So I can select that, and then I can see here that EP5 is my current, is orange as well. And so that my current record folder must be in there, and there it is. And I know that this one's the current one because it's orange and it has the word current after it. So it couldn't be clearer. Okay, so you can very easily come through and select any folder at any level and just hit this set current. And now that will become current and it will go orange and show the word current after it. So it's like these small navigation improvements does help to make it far more intuitive. So there's also here, you may have noticed that on the toggle switch here, we have an options menu, a new options menu. And this applies to whichever folder the blue highlight is currently on. All right, so I can select any folder, in this case, folder 5. And the options available are create sound report and delete folder. Okay, now let's just actually come back to one where I know there's some folders in. So here's a folder 1, and I can come in here and I can select options and I can create a sound report from here. Now, when you create sound report from here, it's going to, because it's a record folder function, it's going to apply it's going to create the sound reports on all 3 media, depending on what tracks were routed to those media in your record play menu, the track to media menu. So I can just select that now and it will create the sound report across all 3 media. You do have a shortcut to that. Now this also, which you can apply to a toggle switch. Now this create sound report function is different from the one that you'll find in the file menu. here, files, where you can basically go into any folder and create a sound report from there. That way, when you do it from the file menu, it's only going to create the sound report on the drive that you selected. Okay. So the other option is a really neat function as well, and that is delete folder. Now, previously, if you'd got some old dud folders that you wanted to clear off your drive, you'd have to go to each drive, the SSD, the SD1 and the SD2, and perform that task 3 times to clear it off the system fully. Here, the delete folder will actually delete all record folders, associated record folders off all 3 media. It's a task you want to be really sure about before you do it. So there are a couple of fail safes here. If I press that, it will say the record folder and its contents will be permanently deleted from all media. Do you want to continue? It defaults to cancel, so you can't accidentally do that. So then you hit OK, and then it asks you again, are you sure? So it's very difficult to accidentally do this. And then you hit that, the folder will go, and there you can see I've cleaned up an old folder which was irrelevant, or maybe it was an empty folder that was created that you'd never actually recorded anything in. So that is essentially the new improvements to the record folder. The new options menu is a really useful tool. What's just one other thing here? If you go into another way to see the full recorder path is to come in here, and you can see the folder path just here as well. All right. And I can also go in there and see there's a new menu here called folder. And if I select that, it shows you the folder path. I can select that, and is like another shortcut to the record folder. There's another thing that I'd like to talk about, slight improvements to the creating a new folder, and that is by selecting new here. And let's just back out of this one more time. When you create a new folder, you can create a new folder at any level. Okay, so let's say, for instance, I'm going to create a folder here in folder -5. So I'm going to create new here. Now we've made this menu slightly less confusing as well. It was confusing to me, and I think it may have confused some of you users too, in that when you'd come in here, you'd have one of these items selected blue, and that made you think that that was the currently selected folder type that you were going to create. We've got rid of that. So now it's much more obvious just by scrolling through these 3 options, which type of record folder you're going to create. Okay, so custom, it's just a custom folder name that you give your own name. Project will be based on the project metadata you've entered for the next take, and then the daily folder, which is the folder system we use for automatically creating daily folders every day or not, depending on your requirements. So you come in here, create, the sign of the devil, and there it is. Okay, now that's my current folder. Obviously, if I want to start recording in an existing folder, it's as simple as just selecting any folder and whatever it is, and hitting set current, and then you're back in that folder. Okay, so let's talk about another really important key feature here, rename. Now, this was a feature we had on the old 6 series, on the older 6 series, and we've now brought this to the 8 series. We know it's been highly requested. So now you can select any take, and you can go in there, hit edit, and now there's this new rename function. Now, where this is beneficial, because we've always had the ability to rename a take, a file name, by virtue of the fact that the take name and the file names that make up that take use the scene take format or the project scene take format, depending on what your file name format is set to in the files menu. And you could basically edit scene and then edit the take number, which was a 2-step process, which, you know, in some cases could end up in a middle state where you create a duplicate file. Like if you've named the scene only, it could actually cause a duplicate of a previous take. So being able to rename all in one space is here is a really nice feature. So this is actually very complicated logic, because we're not just renaming the take here, we're renaming it such the file names change, but also any embedded metadata stays in sync. And it has to be a very intelligent system. So for instance, this particular take is called 2001 take 1. I can sort of like scroll back here perhaps and delete that, and maybe I wanted to name it 2001 take 1, and let's say take 7 or something like that. I've renamed it all, and now hit save. It's updated the metadata here accordingly and changed the file name, so they remain in sync. Now that's quite complex logic to achieve that, because we rely on the take separator, and if you're in project scene take mode, also a project separator. So we have to know where, if you've edited the take separator that you, or change that, it's going to go freeform, because some people like to be able to freeform name their take. For instance, I could delete this entirely, right, and call it, I don't know, Bob, which is my default name for everything. And because now this has broken the rule of the take designator and the format scene take separator take, it now knows it's a freeform name. And in that case, it will not change the metadata. It will just change the name. And as you can see, metadata stays the same, which is what you wanted, but now we have a freeform name. So we have this capability. Now, a lot of this is going to be based on how you have selected, what you've selected in your file format menu. So whatever you selected as your take separator is how the logic to renaming is going to be processed. And also, if you're using the project take format, again, it will use that as the basis for determining whether metadata should be changed or not. So that's pretty much the rename function, a very useful tool, and I think one that's going to be appreciated a lot. Okay, I think that covers it. I just want to mention one other thing, is we have made a whole bunch of improvements to daily folders in terms of clearing up some bugs. I think the main one there was users could end up with a whole bunch of empty folders. So that has now been corrected. And also, if you have loaded a setup file from days ago, you're not going to end up recording into that old daily folder from days ago. It's not going to confuse things there. So Joe, I'm finished. If anyone has any questions, please submit them now.
Yeah, if you guys want to get your questions in, honestly, you kept up. Every time William asked a question, your next sentence was answering that question without even looking at it. So look at that. Regular pro. Let me see here. Give it just a couple seconds. You guys can use the QA or the chat window. You can get those questions in if you have any. As a reminder, if you guys have any questions about sdnx or the file structure, you guys can always email or call into our support team. They'd love to talk to you. Let me see. The license is locked to your 8 series. It is serial number dependent. They can't be moved or transferred between devices. I know it's something that has come up a lot. So they are unit specific. Let me see. New file structure is good. Yeah, thanks for coming. Let's see what else we have.
All quiet on the Western Front. Great.
Yeah, it's kind of getting there. Hang on. Sec here.
Can I get back to shoveling my drive then?
See, compare and contrast noise assistant CEDAR. You guys can do that yourself. You have them now in your 8 series. Test them out, throw a boom overhead, and you guys can just toggle between the two of them. They do have different applications. They do have different sounds. So it's just a matter of preference. You know, just like Paul says, it goes back to auto mix. versus, or excuse me, Mix Assist versus Dugan Auto Mix, right? We are very happy to offer you guys two tools that might differ just depending on what you're needing. Phil, yes, this is being recorded now. It'll go up in the next few days. The folder structure training has been highly requested. We waited until these changes were made in 7.4 to make sure everything was.
There is something that I do want to say here. I know people don't particularly like reading user guides anymore, but we are keeping the user guides up to date. And with each new version of the user guide, we're fleshing out more detail and rewriting things so things are a little bit clearer and to avoid confusion on certain more complex subjects. So revisit that. There's quite an updated version relating to the whole record folders side of stuff.
Can you run through the procedure for implementing a false start? You mean like a Clive? Are you talking like a false take or?
Yeah, that's very easy. So, you just hit record, and if it was a full start, you just use the shortcut, press and hold the headphone encoder, and then move your joystick to rewind. And then it will come up with a pop-up saying, do you want to false take this take? And it will delete it. Yeah, or move it to the false takes folder, should I say, so it's still on the drive. And when you false take, it will. I can probably demonstrate this really quickly, Joe, if it helps.
Let me pin you. There you go. Should be larger, Paul, for everybody there.
Okay, let's see. How do I get to there? Okay, here we go. Everyone see that? So, if I do a recording here, and it was a false take, I'm just going to move this way a bit, zoom out a little bit so you can see the operation. Here you go. So I just recorded that. If I use this headphone encoder, hold that, and then move this to here. Oh, that's interesting. That should actually work. And it doesn't. Okay, I've just found a bug for some reason.
Wonderful.
Which is probably not a good thing. I'm not sure what I'm running here in terms of firmware, so maybe this is an old beta that I haven't updated. But essentially, press this and this, and it'll come up with a pop-up saying false take. I'll have to look at that.
We'll double check.
We'll double check.
Yeah, William says thank you for keeping the user guides up to date. Yes, with every update there. Thanks for bringing CEDAR. You're very welcome. It was really cool to work with CEDAR. Folder updates, we know it's been highly requested, so we were happy to bring those up to date.
Right. By the way, I think I know what this false take thing is, and this is something to actually note to our users using false take. Mm-hmm. If the false take function operates on the most recent take in the take list. So it's the second one from the top in the list. Now, if you've been going backwards and forwards in date, which I have been doing a lot because of testing daily folders and stuff and adjusting the date, what will happen is that take will not be at, because that take list is ordered in chronological order, most recent at the top. If that take you just recorded was set to a previous date, it's not going to false take, and that'd be the reason for that. So just be aware that that is the way false take works. It works on the most recent take in the list.
Okay. All right. Any further questions on anything in 7.40? Doesn't look like it. Okay.
Right. Well, thanks everybody for listening again, and hope you're all well and keeping safe in these times, and hope to speak to you again soon with more information soon.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, everybody. We'll have this up on probably within the next few days. If not, it'll be early next week. So it'll be available for re-watching. So thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah. Thank you.
See you next time. Have a good one.
Bye.